Everyone, this is update for May 30, 2023, day 461 of the war and of the date update, also catch up for May 29. So first I'm going to start with strategic updates, what's going on in the world, and then we're going to switch to Ukraine and discuss this upcoming offensive there. So first, the news out of Asia Pacific are totally disastrous, in my opinion. So first, economic news, and that's, as you know, all know, my opinion is the most important part that drives the rest. But so let's just start with China. China manufacturing PMI for May, I believe for May, was down to 48.8, and the way it works, anything that's above 50 means expansion, and then below 50 means shrinking. And so this really means that manufacturing in China is shrinking. It has been also in April, which was 49.2, so May 48.8. So you see the nosedive is deepening. The trend is clearly getting worse and more negative. The expectation was that it's going to be actually a rebound to 51 point, I think, 4 in market was expecting that it's going to go back into positive territory, that there is this recovery in China, and it's actually not happening there. And I discussed here multiple times why there are two parts to Chinese economy, right? It's a real estate bubble and consumer bubble, and that bubble is bursting in China. It's very clear. It's a slow motion burst. I think it started in I think it's September of 2021 when this real estate developer started to blow up in China, and it's still going on and still didn't even go into sort of major part of the correction there. It just the Chinese government is trying to kind of like have controlled demolition, which never worked, and eventually it will get out of their control. And the other part is export-driven economy, which is China is a factory of the world and manufacturing factory of the world, manufacturing sort of force of the world, and that one is not doing well either. So that's why you see this whole Chinese economy is broken. The business model, like modus operandi, how they work, and there is no, as I said before, current Chinese president and leadership does not have alternative, does not have new ideas how to move forward, and so this increases internally pressure to have some military conflict within China, just because of what I just told you. There is also non-manufacturing PMI was released. That is more like for services. I mean, obviously, China is not service-based economy; it's manufacturing economy. But it also went into negative. It's a negative trend. It's 54.5, which means there's still some slight expansion. But it's negative trend from April, where it was 56.4. So as you can see, the trend is clearly negative in both sort of sides. And the reason I mentioned this sort of services or non-manufacturing PMI is because usually it's non-discretionary spending that's sort of sticky, sort of people spend no matter what. And when it's going, so usually it's really hard for it to get into negative. The fact that it's already in a negative trend tells quite a bit. So it kind of gives a comprehensive view of Chinese economy that it's absolutely not doing well, let's put it this way. Then let's switch to China's neighbor, South Korea. And that's just, I would say, manufacturing hub for their sort of west or free world, let's put it this way, along with Japan. And that one is not doing well at all. And it does look like some kind of start of depression there. So industrial production there year on year in April was down 8.9%. That's pretty huge. But it's not surprising. If you remember, I was showing numbers about the imports of the semiconductors from Korea, exports, basically imports into China, exports from South Korea, and they were down like I think it was a double-digit number. So there is no surprise here. It's down. The trend is also worsening. The March one was negative 7.6, so this one 8.9. So you can see it's just definitely nosediving there. And again, South Korea is manufacturing economy. It's not a service based economy. It's sort of similar to China, just more value added products made there relative to China. So again, the situation is pretty, I would say, mini depression there, or major depression. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out eventually. The expectation was also that the market was sort of expecting improvement there in the trend, and it actually sort of completely changed, completely hit market. Let's say market consensus was sort of proven wrong. Let's put it this way. Then also in South Korea, retail sales are down, which is also, retail sales are things that I usually almost never get negative. It's quite a bad sign when retail sales go negative, just even for because of inflation. Things may go really bad, but because of inflation, it still usually stays about zero. The fact that it went a negative minus 2.3 kind of confirms, what sort of industrial production story tells us, that situation in South Korea economically is heading into depression situation. And this is also the trend is also like nosediving. So in March it was 0.1 positive. Now you see April negative 2.3. Also, market consensus was that it's going to actually go up 0.8%. So again, all of this market consensus is, in my opinion, is completely wrong for the most of the time, and has very low value. I would say negative value. Then let's switch to Japan. Also industrial economy, but with much higher mix of services and more value add relative to China and South Korea. So you can kind of like rank. China produces sort of like on average, if you sort of condense the whole economy, because there's definitely things that are advanced in China, that are advanced in South Korea, but if you condense the whole economy in terms of complexity and value add, so in terms of manufacturing, so China will be on the lowest level, then the next one is going to be South Korea, and then the top is going to be Japan. So the situation and Japan is much more connected to the U.S. relative of, in terms of industrial manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. So there, the industrial production was in April was negative 0.4, much milder sort of decline, recession than let's say in South Korea and in China. March was actually positive 1.1, but here you see also very strong negative trend. So again, it kind of confirms what we're seeing. It's just because Japan is more value add production, industrial production, it's sort of their products are more stickier, more needed by the customers. So the negative effect is lower overall. But still, it's very clear the trend is there and it's shrinking. And again, market expectation was that it's going to be mildly positive, 0.5%. Again, proven completely wrong. Then also Japanese retail sales still positive. It was 5% positive in April. However, very clear negative trend relative to March, where it was 6.9% positive, right? So you have almost like 2% drop from month to month. It just, as I said before, it's because it's more advanced. It's sort of sinking into this recession at much slower pace from much higher level relative to, let's say, China and South Korea. However, if we look in Japan at large retailers, they already showed negative number of minus 1.2%. And in March it was positive 0.6. So I don't know much about this large versus small retail in Japan, but you can see that if you think that large retailers are sort of probably well, I guess if the whole retail is still positive, then they are not major part. So, but anyway, so you can see that some segments of the retail are sort of sinking much faster relative to the whole retail sector in Japan. But again, it tells you a comprehensive picture that no matter where you look in all of this three, and essentially these three countries are, the entire, Pacific, not economy, but they are the drivers of this Asia Pacific economy, effectively. And so you can see quite quick descent into in my view, outright depression in these three countries. And this is not just this is the snapshot of these three countries. Something similar is happening in Europe, and if you remember, I showed very negative numbers at the beginning of May from Germany, especially future orders were terrible. So this is all interconnected system. This is not just Asia Pacific. This is just, we're looking at the numbers in these countries. It really means that simultaneously Europe is sinking, and simultaneously US, or the Canada, US, that part of the world sinking too. So this is all, everything's going to get affected. It just the level to which everyone is going to get hit is probably going to be different. But it's very clear that there is a synchronized global recession, if not depression, is in the making. How quickly it will hit, to what degree, everyone we will find out. That's reason that crude oil on this news sold off very aggressively. I think it was lost like $3, some plus minus, maybe $2. But really, for crude oil to lose so much in one session is quite unusual. And again, this is a reaction of the world markets to what they see, that the global recession / depression, which we'll find out where it's going to be, is in the making. And as I said before, this is basically popping of the global bubble in everything by the Federal Reserve, which they are forced to do. And I explained many times why. And it looks like they still going to be staying on this path for a while, because inflation in the U.S. is sticky, and that's a problem. And that's related to the fact that I explained before, that the productivity is down significantly, and that's really the driver of inflation at this point in the U.S. Now let's switch a little bit to sort of Europe. So first of all, Poland, which is not really a neighbor of Russia, but really it is a neighbor of Russia for all intents and purposes. And I'm not talking about this Kaliningrad small region. I'm talking about the neighboring of Russia through Belarus, because effectively Belarus is extension of Russia. I said it many times before, and just want to sort of confirm so everybody understands. So like even the, I think, head of the border, border guard service, or border patrol, whatever you call it, I'm not sure what's the right name for it, but basically it protects the borders of the country. So the person was just appointed, and he is a Russian citizen, obviously the part of Russian KGB system and so on. So this was similar what was going on in Ukraine in that period from 2010 to 13, when Ukraine basically had Russian puppet in charge of Ukraine. He was also putting Russian citizens as a Minister of Defense and similar sort of you know ministries that have basically power. So the same is happening with Belarus. Effectively, as I said, it's kept separate just for the purposes of two votes in the United Nations, similar to what Soviet Union did with the former Soviet republics, and they were it's all, it was very clear to everyone it's one country, but it gave Soviet Union a couple more votes on the international arena. So going back to Poland, so what Poland did, they blocked Russian trucks, semi-trailer trucks that transport all of the import to Russia from Europe, and so they cannot go through the border between the two countries. And they obviously cannot go through Ukraine, so they essentially blocked. This is also blocks this Kaliningrad region of Russia, which is former German territories. And so the only question remains if effectively Russia is blocked from importing from Europe. Not to say that it's blocked anyways, largely. So at this point, this situation is completely sealed off. It's obviously rising tension between the countries. There is no question about it. So it's very clear that there is sort of, let's say, new iron curtain being built between Russia and Belarus and the West. Then a little bit out of European Union in terms of energy prices. So price for natural gas is really dropping like a rock. In Europe, it's I think reached new low, 276 US dollars per thousand cubic meters. What this really means, it's not may look like a great sign. It's not really a great sign. What this really means is, first of all, energy-intensive industry is dead in Europe, and nobody's going to be restarting it. So that's the first thing. So you really don't need so much natural gas. And the second one, what I said before, is this recession, potentially depression is coming up, so there is not much demand. So it's not a great sign. It's actually a pretty bad sign overall. In terms of, I just want to touch base on Turkey again on this re-election, because I think it's not quite fully understood how Turkey's position in all of this. And there was, I think, the speech was given by the Turkish Minister of Foreign Affairs, who said literally to the crowd during the re-election, he said, "We finally caught West in a weak position, and we caught US, and we will, over the next 5 years, will destroy all of our enemies." And I think he also mentioned US troops as well. So Turkey is clearly, positioning itself as, this Ottoman. They tried to rebuild this Ottoman Empire, which will fail miserably, but they will try. So this is what's going on. What's going to be happening with Turkey, with the West. It's not. It's even Turkey part of the NATO. It's in a way deceptive because it's not really a part of the NATO in a way. Then let's actually switch back to U.S. and China. So there was a hearing, I think, in National Committee on U.S. China sort of affairs, and the rhetoric there was completely aggressive, where U.S. Navy commander for Indo-Pacific, forgot his name, basically he directly addressed Chinese president, and he said if China basically threatened if China tries to conquer Taiwan, the Chinese population will pay with blood, and so on. So basically, it was very direct rhetoric that's extremely aggressive, I would say. And obviously, China would hear that message as well. Uh, at the same time, there is a very clear split in the U.S. between two parts. Is one is sort of this political and military sort of leadership, and then the business leadership. And while political and military leadership is definitely sort of understanding that some kind of collision with China could become very, let's say, there is high probability of it coming, and they try to sort of change and prepare. The business side, business leadership in the US is completely against that. And they completely don't want that to be happening, and they try to sort of they probably will try to affect politics in the US through lobbying, which in my opinion is legalized corruption, but it does exist. And so they will basically try to sort of push that off for as long as they can. And this there was a visit by Elon Musk to China, when he said that both countries are twins, which is 100% correct, and he doesn't want those twins to be separated. Which, if there is separation, both countries will probably go into depression, and U.S. will definitely, both China and U.S. will not be immune and will go into depression if they were to separate this relationship, because it looks like two separate countries, but from economic perspective, you remove sort of boundaries and sort of national stuff. It's just one economic system in a way that the Soviet Union was. And when it collapsed in 1991, there was effectively a depression in all of the countries because economic ties were broken, and so, except in that case, they were sort of naturally broken. In this case, if this is gonna happen by force, and so in the case of Soviet Union, the collapse was about like 30% of the GDP was wiped, plus minus, depending on the country, was in a matter of 2 years was wiped out in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, pretty much everywhere, Kazakhstan. So something similar will happen between U.S. And China if this goes that way, and that's why business is obviously opposing it, because that really means losing profits, losing earnings, and so as a business, business is about earning money, so they're obviously not interested in that. Now let's switch to Ukraine. So yesterday, which is May 29, there was a council between Ukrainian military command and Ukrainian president. And as I said before, he's sort of very hands-on, very micromanager by his nature. So he finally approved the plan of the offensive. They even discussed which brigades are going to be participating. Then he made a speech about it, saying that, which is also absolutely wrong, because you don't want to announce, these details. This is this offensive will probably go in history as most, I would say, discussed in detail and expected offensive in the world's military history, I would say. And hopefully it goes well for Ukraine, but so far everything has been done to make it such that it doesn't go well, by all of these announcements and so on. But in any case, the largely Ukrainian army is prepared, or in really final stages of being prepared. When exactly this is going to happen, nobody knows, and hopefully they're not going to announce that. But as I said, this is highly expected, which diminishes chances of success tremendously. But it's probably going to happen within the next 2 weeks. I would expect very high probability in June, even though I said before that high expectation is going to happen after May 15. It's May 30, and it's still not there. But it's definitely clearly moving in the direction of the offensive. The exact timing is we'll find out hopefully from sort of the news, not from the pre-announcements. Now let's switch to and then one other topic I would like to discuss, because I'm sure some of the viewers are wondering about all of this, mutual attacks that are happening. Ukraine attacks, Moscow attacks Kiev and the rest of the Ukraine. At least for the Russian side, I explained the goal is to disrupt and diminish the strengths of the offensive by disrupting logistics, by destroying ammunition, by doing all of the things they can to diminish the strengths of the offensive. That's what Russian side is largely doing. What Ukrainian side doing is, unfortunately, cheap propaganda show, has no meaningful value for anything. Really distracts resources, attention, and everything from actually doing right things to make actually offensive successful. That's unfortunate, but as I said before, this is the nature of Ukrainian political top, which obviously it's all driven by political top, and it is what it is. Let's put it this way. Now let's actually switch to the walk through the front line. I'm gonna do it in a clockwise fashion, as I always do, starting from the north top, and then we're gonna go south. So situation along the state border remains very intense. I would say as it's at the highest level it's been. There is no sort of reduction in sort of adversities on both sides. Then let's jump to North Lugansk front line. Things here largely quiet. There was some tactical attack here on this road towards Kupiansk. Nothing major here. It's just a tactical skirmishes of I would say zero strategic importance. Let's put it this way. Otherwise, this is sort of a quiet section of the front line. And as a whole, I would like to give a commentary that both sides are sort of quiet, which is, as I said, is a quiet before the storm. Both sides are preparing for the final move. For the Russian side, this really means accumulating ammunition because there are shortages. In Ukraine, on the Ukrainian side, it's probably enough to do the offensive. I don't know what's the effect of Russian strikes on Ukrainian ammunition depots. I mentioned before there was one extremely successful that hit in Khmelnytsky. So, but at the same time, and maybe that's a reason for delay. Till now, maybe even for a little bit longer, to accumulate enough of the ammunition. But basically, both sides are stockpiling ammunition to be able to actively use it during offensive, and then obviously there will be probably some kind of counter-offensive happening. I'm going to discuss, actually, I forgot one sort of more political situation developments in Russia, and I'm going to discuss it once I'm going to go through the front line. But let's for now jump to North Donbass front line. Things here are completely quiet, like just totally quiet. Nothing really even like at the level of skirmishes happening. Just it's completely like 180-degree opposite of what it was, let's say, months ago, 2 weeks ago. Absolutely different situation here now. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line. It's also fairly weak here as well. There are some activity around this Marinka and this attack towards Novomikhailivka, but this is sort of one ecosystem. And when Russian forces, they cannot do much in Marinka, then they trying to attack sort of Novomikhailivka in the hope to achieve basically to achieve success in Marinka by creating sort of attempting this flanking attack. But this is, as always, dead end for the Russian side. And so there was some relatively minor attack out of the Pisky salient, but otherwise the whole front line is quiet as well, which is obviously is unusual for those who've been viewing these videos for a while. Usually there is quite a bit of activity, and it's remarkably quiet on the front line. And then the last one, Zaporizhya, I'm not even gonna go there. It's all quiet there as well. So going back to this, the developments in Russia and the situation, political situation in Russia is there's sort of things happening behind the scenes, and what is happening? It looks like the head of Wagner Group, Prigozhin, could be replacing current Russian president, and this is sort of planned. This is not just a how to say random or sort of coming from the bottom. This is kind of like revolution from the top, where there is apparently a decision within Russian political top or political ruling class to replace current Russian president with the head of Wagner Group. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but he's sort of successor. So similar how it used to be with prior Russian president. By that I mean Boris Yeltsin, who basically appointed current Russian president, and then it was sort of rubber stamps through election, and sort of something similar is happening right now, because the head of Wagner Group again was making very aggressive remarks towards Russian Ministry of Defense, and this, knowing Russian system, this is not allowed unless this is pre-planned or this has to be coming from sort of KGB, and what is ruling Russia basically, and so again, this is sort of in a way controlled demolition in Russia, and this is probably how Russian political top is trying to diffuse this potential 1917 moment that I was discussing before, where if I think Lenin was saying the best way to defeat the enemy is to lead the enemy, or basically, or something to that effect, basically. And this is what's I think being done with the head of Wagner Group, who is sort of going to be this kind of like opposition, and by critiquing all of this Ministry of Defense incompetence and sort of Soviet style, all of that, effectively he's gaining tremendous support in Russia, and especially given that all of this attacks that's been happening from Ukraine on Russian territory, in this Belgorod incursion, then this attacks on Moscow or Kremlin itself, basically there is it sort of underscores in Russian population that okay, we need the new Tsar, new king, and here's KGB offering new Tsar, new king, who is capable, who can do things, and who is better than the old one. and this is probably what's going on in Russia. And I would say that um, head of Wagner Group is going to be much more sophisticated enemy, much better. He's much more common sense. He's entrepreneur at heart, and that really makes him the most formidable enemy you can have. He's gonna beat any bureaucrat every time he will face, and unfortunately, West is extremely bureaucratized. And so for that reason, he's going to be a very strong opponent. This is this is how to say high probability scenario. I'm not saying this is like I have reports from Russian KGB saying that, but this is just analysis based on observations of the moves within sort of Russian political world. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and till next time. Bye bye.